In this video, I'd like to show you how to make some calculations with your calculator and hopefully catch some common mistakes that I see. I'm using a pretty fancy calculator here. It's not the one I use regularly because it has way more things than even I need. But you may have a similar calculator or a calculator has the same keys. What you could do to get the most out of this video is grab your calculator and try to get numerical results for the things I calculate here. There are only 3 things, so it won't take too long. The first thing I'd like you to calculate is 1 divided by 2 pi. That'll come up in some equations that we have later. So you could just try to do what seems obvious, and this calculator actually has a symbol for pi. Maybe yours does. If not, you would have to use pi equals 3.14. But that seems about right, so you press enter and you get 1.57. So if I round that off a little bit, dropping off some of those digits to the right, I'm just going to write down 1.57. The problem is that doesn't look at all right to me. Look at pi is around 3. 2 times 3 is 6. This number should be the same as around 1/6, which is much less than 1. Instead, I have a result which is much greater than 1. In fact, what we have here is a miscommunication. Your calculator misunderstood what you wanted to do here when you typed in 1 divided by 2 pi. In fact, what your calculator thought you really wanted was 1/2 pi. 1.57 is 1/2 of pi. So your calculator thought this pi was in the numerator when you thought it was in the denominator. So if you have a calculator with parentheses, you can remedy that by using the parentheses key. So 2, and then if you press enter, you get 0.159 if I round off a little bit. So which one of those is correct? The second one is correct, and the first one is incorrect. You didn't communicate with your calculator. When you put the parentheses around the things in the denominator, you make it clear to your calculator that you would like it to multiply all those things together first and then divide it into the result. Excellent. Let's try a different one involving numbers in scientific notation. I'm curious what you would do if you were faced with trying to calculate 10 to the 2 divided by 10 to the 4. Now, first of all, you could resort to going a few years back and realize, let's see, 10 to the 2, that's 100. And 10 to the 4, that's a 1 with 4 zeros, so that's 10,000. So really what you want here is 100 divided by 10,000. And that's fairly easy to calculate. You just have to be careful you don't miss any decimal places. So the result is 0.01. And there are no digits to the right because they're all exactly 0. By the way, I should say the 0.01, if you wanted to put that back into scientific notation, you move the decimal place 1, 2, so that's 10 to the minus 2. So if you do 10 to the 2 divided by 10 to the 4, the result is 10 to the minus 2. That reminds me to tell you that when you're adding and subtracting powers of 10, numbers that are expressed in powers of 10, I mean multiplying and dividing numbers expressed as powers of 10, you can combine the exponents using addition and subtraction. So 10 to the 2 divided by 10 to the 4, you might remember, is the same as 10 to the 2 minus 4. So the minus sign comes from the fact that this is in the denominator, which gives you 2 minus 4 is 10 to the minus 2. So you can often just do powers of 10 if you're good in your head. Now sometimes I see students using their calculators to calculate this, which is totally fine. And here's the way I see it done. I see 10 to the 2 divided by 10 to the 4. Looks good? Hit enter. Excellent. Get the same result. And the thing that you type into the calculator looks exactly like the thing that you want to calculate. I do want to call your attention to the fact that this is rather a cumbersome way to deal with numbers in scientific notation on your calculator. any scientific calculator has really got a better way to do this. Now, first of all, I do want to remind you before I show you this other way of calculating that when you write 10 to the 2, you really mean 1 times 10 to the 2. A number expressed in scientific notation always has a number out front multiplied by a power of 10. And if there's no number up front, then you assume that it's 1. I'll have an example that follows where the number out front is not 1. I would see students enter this into their calculator in this way. 1 times 10 to the 2 divided by 1 times 10 to the 4. Everything looks good. You hit enter. And now we have 1 million. Not the right answer. What the heck went wrong? Again, you miscommunicated with your calculator. You meant 1 times 10 to the 4 all in the denominator, but your calculator thought that that last times 10 to the 4 was actually in the numerator, like it did when we calculated 1 divided by 2 pi. So there would be a way to fix this. I'm going to put the thing that appears in the denominator in parentheses. Wait, nope, I made a mistake there. Okay. Now we're back to our correct answer because we communicated correctly with the calculator that 1 times 10 to the 4 we wanted in the denominator. That was a lot of keystrokes. All scientific calculators have a better way to deal with numbers in scientific notation, although it seems a little abstract. On my calculator, it's the double E here. Yours might be just a single E, like this green one here. But on this calculator, it's double E. That's a mathematical way of, computer way really, of representing scientific notation. Here's the way that I would end up calculating this. I would do 1 times 10 to the 2nd divided by 1 times 10 to the 4th. So before I hit enter, I want to point out what's here. You got 1 capital E2. That means 1 times 10 to the 2nd. So the capital E takes the place of the times 10 to the, and then the 2 is just the exponent. I should point out, great, we do it. We get the right answer. Everything is great. But I want to point out that Blackboard understands numbers input this way as well, with the capital E and then just a number, meaning the exponent, the power of 10. Okay, so let's try one more and see how you do. Here's a full-blown calculation with 2 numbers expressed in scientific notation. How about you see if you can calculate this? So pause the video and see what you get. I'll do it 2 ways. I'll do it the way that more likely than not, from what I've seen in my years of teaching, students do by error, and then I'll do it the correct way. Okay, so have you got your result yet? Here's the old-fashioned way of entering that number. Looks good. Hit enter. Get a number, 34.2, or actually let's round that one up to 34.3, and it turns out not the right number again. You made an error. It's the same error that you made, well, maybe you didn't make it, but that I've seen students make with the times 10 to the thing. So you could remedy this by putting everything that appears in the denominator in parentheses. That's excellent. If you want to spend all of the time typing all of this in, it's pretty boring. Definitely don't want to make a mistake and have to key it all back in again. I think I've instructed my calculator to do the right thing, and I get a gigantic number Whoa, 342,857, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. How would I put that number in scientific notation? I would count. Let's see, I have to move the decimal place in this time to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So to me, that looks like 3.43 times 10 to the 5th. There is a way for your calculator to change these things automatically for you, but it's different for different calculators, so I'm not going to show that. You'll have to figure out your own. Last thing I want to point out is that calculating it out like that took a lot of keying. If you use that scientific notation key, it's going to go much faster. Watch this. 7.2 times 10 to the 3rd divided by 2.1 times 10 to the -2, and we get our answer, the same one we got before. So when you use numbers in scientific notation, you don't need parentheses around that E thing. Calculator understands it better. Anyways, I hope that this video has helped you figure out how to use your calculator more reliably to make the calculations you do in class more accurate.